When my middle school principal, Mr. Burns, suggested that I be sent to a child psychiatrist, no one was more excited than I was. Because no one was more convinced than I was that mine was an intellect worthy of deep, focused study. What I pictured of going to a psychiatrist was, I pictured a sort of ivy-covered university, a sort of futuristic laboratory sort of set within the confines of this university. My doctor would have either a German or British accent, either one would do. And there'd be a lot of student lab techs on hand, just in case I needed to be tested for extrasensory abilities. You know? And where I had gotten most of my notion of what going to a child psychiatrist was like was from repeated viewings of a film called Dreamscape. Dreamscape is a movie starring a very young Dennis Quaid as a psychic who had the ability to jump into other people's dreams, a power he mainly used to fight man-eating were-snakes and save the life of the president, played by Eddie Albert. It was awesome. I was excited. It was going to be like the Dream Big Laboratory from Dreamscape and like the Danger Room from the X-Men. It was going to be great. The person in the room who was the least excited about this prospect was my mother, because for a few different reasons. Number one, I think my mother had taken Mr. Burns' suggestion as more of a demand, possibly because he said his exact words were, "We're going to have to demand that Brad be sent to a child psychiatrist." Also, I think she was under no illusions as to who'd be paying for this. And finally, unlike her youngest son, my mother did not suffer from any sort of pubescent ADHD, and therefore was still keenly focused on what had brought us to this moment, and that was my brief but illustrious career as a 6th grade pornographer. Okay. Do you understand is that I was an artistic and sensitive child. Which means fat. I was a very fat kid. But I used to draw all the time, and drawing was kind of my way of escaping sort of the harsher realities of being a fat kid, the teasing and the bullying and that kind of stuff. I sort of created a little bubble of imagination around myself, and I would sort of sink into drawing, and I was very into comic books at this point, so I was pretty good at drawing sort of outsized breasts and biceps that make up realistic figure drawing in the world of comic books. And so I would do this during class as opposed to like any sort of homework. And I'm doing this one day in English class, and I'm drawing Spider-Man or whatever, when my little bubble of imagination is pierced by the following words from directly behind me, and those words are, "Hey, why don't you draw me a picture of the Pope fucking a dog?" And I stop, and I turn around, because that's the kind of thing you gotta look right in the eye, right? And it's coming from John Brake, who's directly behind me. And first of all, I'm just amazed that John Brake is saying anything that does not begin with, "Hey, fat ass," and end with, "I'm gonna kick your ass after school." And so I'm kind of staring at him somewhat dumbfounded, which he takes me that I haven't heard the request, so he repeats the request, and he says, "Hey, why don't you draw me a picture of the Pope fucking a dog?" He makes this little hand gesture. And I'm like, and my first thought is like, I was not raised Catholic, I was raised evangelical, the Pope has no personal meaning for me, but at the same time, like anyone who might have a direct line to God, like I'm not the kind of thing you want to mess with too much, and I'm just kind of like, I'm not, I have qualms and reservations, I'm not really, I don't want to do it, I just don't want to do it. And then John says, "I'll pay you $2, so draw a picture of the Pope fucking dog." And I give it to him, and he gives me $2, which is awesome, and they start showing it to like all the guys who sit around and like, "Look at this drawing Lawrence did me, the Pope fucking a dog." And they're all looking at it and like, "This is a really good drawing of the Pope fucking a dog." And I just want to, just real quick, as a little aside, I do want to say, I am still somewhat proud of this drawing. Just because the expression in the dog's face alone was masterful. But so this begins a cottage industry, because now all of these kids want me to draw things for them, and they're all offering me $2, like the established rate, right? And of course they all want me to draw things that are obscene or pornographic. They're all 12-year-old boys. And you learn things about your fellow classmates when you are drawing them customized pornography that you cannot find out any other way. There's one kid, David, who really had a thing for women in uniform. Like a number of like police women wearing just the hat and the belt and nothing else, or like construction women wearing just the hard hat and the tool belt. Okay, first, a uniform is a hat and a belt. But he like really had a thing. But you know, They're creative, I'm the art department. Not my job to judge. I just pump these things out and make my $2. That's what I do. It's business. So I'm drawing these things, I'm putting them out there. Everything's going along great. It's a cottage industry. I'm making money hand over fist. It's all good. And then one day, this one kid, Bobby Devaney, switches things up with me. Because what Bobby wants is, he doesn't want sex, he wants violence. And how he proposes this to me, he says, "Hey Lawrence, draw me a picture of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre." And my first thought is, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? That's a whole movie. Like, how do you draw someone a whole movie? Like, frame by frame? What does he want me to do here? I don't understand. And then I look at Bobby and sort of the slack jaw and the glazed over expression and the mustache in the 6th grade, and I think, got it. And so the drawing is, it is a guy wearing a mask with a chainsaw, standing in a pile of dismembered body parts, and I give it to Bobby, and he's like, great! The next day he comes in and he's like, draw me Friday the 13th. It's the same drawing. Guy, mask, body parts, a machete instead of a chainsaw, that was it. Give it to him. Awesome! Man of simple taste, but he knew what he wanted. My kind of client. $2. I'm back in business, it's all going great, and then one day I come into class, and before I even get the first period, Mr. Burns is there waiting for me. As I walk up, he says, "Mr. Lawrence, please come with me to the office." He takes me out of the office, and he puts me in the secretary's area, and leaves me there, and he goes into his office, and he closes the door, and he's not telling me what the problem is or what's going on. He hasn't said anything to me, but I'm sitting there, and his door's closed, so I can't hear what's going on inside, but I can see through the window in the door, and I can see that he's in there, my guidance counselor, Mr. Donovan, he's in there, and also my English teacher's in there, and she seems very upset about something. She's very worked up, a lot of gesturing, and her face looks very concerned. And then the bell rings, and she leaves to go to first period, and she walks right past me and does not say anything, does not make eye contact or nothing, she's gone. And I'm just like, sit there and wonder how serious the situation is, until my mother arrives, and I realize, oh, this is a very serious situation. And when my mom arrives, the principal's door opens up, and he says, Mrs. Peter, please come inside, and we go into the office, and the first person to speak when we get into the office is Mr. Donovan, who was always kind of like trying to be down with the kids, and so he opens with, "So Brad, what has you so pissed?" And I'm like, I'm a fat kid in the 6th grade. I could produce a list pretty quick, but at the same time, on this day, I have no idea what he's talking about until I look down and I see on Mr. Burns' desk is a stack of my hand-drawn pornography, and topmost of that stack is Bobby Devaney's torture porn. And now, Mr. Burns is handing that stack of pornography to my evangelical mother. As he's doing so, they're all looking at me like waiting for some kind of explanation, and I realize in this moment, they think this comes from me. They think I did these things. Because I did these things, and I signed my name to it, that's what artists do, but they think this represents my inner world, that in my inner world, like the religious leaders violate domestic animals, and all public works projects are done by unrepentant nudists, and serial killers make pitcher's mounds out of their victims, and they think this is my fantasy life, and they're waiting for an explanation, and all I have is the truth, and that's what I give them. I think they paid me to do these things. And my mom says, "What?" And I said, "These are kids. They paid me to draw these things." And my mom says, "What's the money? How much did you make?" And I tell her, and it's a good sum. And now, my mother has to stifle laughter. And she has to stifle because she's the only person in the room who thinks this is funny. Because Mr. Burns and Mr. Donovan, they're not buying the notion that what they've caught here is an artist making a living off of his work. That's too outlandish. But they think they have caught a budding middle school psychopath, and they're going to nip that bud, and that bud is me. And as Mr. Burns says, we're going to have to demand that Brad be sent to a child psychiatrist. My mom stops laughing, and she's very serious and she says, hold on a minute. Look, there is a big difference between being a mercenary and a psychopath, and clearly my son's a mercenary. We have established that much. But he is not dangerous. This led to a heated discussion, some might call it an argument, and how that went. All I can tell you is the child psychiatrist's office was not all I'd hoped for. Thank you.